Hi guys, today we will discuss Sheikh Abdullah, who I'm sure you all of you know. He was the first chief minister of Kashmir and he was also the prime minister under the kingdom of Raja Maharaja Hari Singh in Kashmir. But I don't know about his personal life obviously, but as a political person, he was pretty weird and his actions were pretty crazy. I'm being polite. In a sense, you could call him a sociopath. And I don't mean it in a rude way. If it's rude, of course I can't do anything about it, but stick to the end of the video. There are very, very weird things that I have to point out to you. His actions were very crazy. Absolutely, there doesn't seem to be any moral compass. If there was one moral compass, it was probably his own interests and his own benefits were the only moral compass he believed in. Other than that, you could interpret it in many ways and you could call him a grey character who had many shades, but there seems to be one goal that was his benefit. So to discuss his actions, I'll have to give some background of Kashmir obviously. So let's start from the background. So the tale of the 7 exoduses of Kashmir, of Kashmiri Hindus, is a tale of blood, gore, rapes, murders and unspeakable atrocities under the guidance of Sufis, Shah Hamadan and Shamsuddin Araki, Mughals, Duranis of Afghanistan, and finally the power elites of post-independence. Sheikh Abdullah's rise to power in Kashmir bears an uncanny resemblance to the story of Shah Mir of the 14th century. He was the co-founder of the Muslim Conference in 1932, Sheikh Abdullah, after successfully orchestrating the first riot in the valley in 1931, and was an inveterate power seeker. When he sensed the discomfort of Congress with Maharaja Hari Singh in the late 1930s, he promptly morphed into a nationalist and renamed Muslim Conference as National Conference. It was in this man that India's leadership placed its utmost trust, to the extent that he managed to prevail on the country's leadership to do something that was not done with the other 560 plus princely states. The Instrument of Accession or IOA, signed by Maharaja Hari Singh, was word for word the same as the IOA signed by every other princely state. So the argument put forward by the apologists of Article 370 that the IOA for J&K was the product of special circumstances and has a special significance in the context of J&K's relationship with India, this argument does not hold water. Every other state finally signed covenants of merger and merger agreements and extended the Constitution of India to their princely states in full. However, Maharaja Hari Singh was exiled to Bombay on 20th June 1949. Nobody even asked him whether he was willing to sign a covenant of merger on the lines of the other princely states. Effective power was with Sheikh Abdullah, the prime minister forced upon him, who plays the role of the Shami reincarnate with consummate expertise. The person who understood this skullduggery inherent in this proposal of special status to J&K was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Any topic we discuss in Indian political history, especially around the time of 1930s, 40s, B.R. Ambedkar comes up with the most clear-headed answers. Recall his famous words to Sheikh Abdullah when he went to persuade Dr. Ambedkar to grant special status to J&K. Ambedkar said this to him: "You want India to defend Kashmir, feed its people, give Kashmiris equal rights all over India, but you want to deny India and Indians all rights in Kashmir. I am a law minister of India. I cannot be a party to such a betrayal of national interests." Yet, Article 370 came to be because no effort was made by the leadership to get a covenant of merger from the Maharaja. Unlike all other princely states where the rulers were the prime movers, Jammu and Kashmir had been virtually handed over to Sheikh Abdullah in March 1948 itself, when Sheikh Abdullah graduated from the head of emergency administration of Kashmir to the post of Prime Minister in place of Meher Chand Mahajan, who later became the third Chief Justice of India. Due to his proximity with the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and the pivotal role of Kashmiri Muslims, Sheikh Abdullah began his great saga of blackmail that lasted till 5th August 2019, when the bluff was finally called and Article 370 stood nullified. And then he shows us how he was the king of blackmailing in Indian politics, other than probably Gandhi. Sheikh Abdullah must be given the top billing in any pantheon of blackmailing and blackmailers. Some of his seminal achievements are as follows. First, he delayed the accession of Jammu and Kashmir through his contacts in Congress, as the Maharaja was not willing to make him the Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir. fooled Ramchandra Kak, the Prime Minister of J&K, on 15th August 1947 into signing a standstill agreement with Pakistan by giving him the dreams of a great position in Pakistan, using the foolhardy indirect invasion of Kashmir Valley by Pakistan to his advantage and winning a position of de facto administrator of Kashmir Valley. Then, getting Pandit Nehru to separate Jammu and Kashmir from State Department under Sardar Patel and getting his confidant Gopal Swami Iyengar to head Jammu and Kashmir affairs. Blackmailing Pandit Nehru into stopping the Indian march into Muzaffarabad and Baltistan, as he did not trust the Mirpur Muslims and the Shias of Baltistan and Gilgit, forcing the hands of Nehru into going to UN under the cover of a letter by Mountbatten in which he had promised plebiscite. So that's the start of the POK, the Pakistan occupied Kashmir, because Sheikh Abdullah convinced Nehru not to pursue Muzaffarabad and Mirpur because he didn't like the Muslims of Mirpur. Persuading the government of India to exile Maharaja Hari Singh to Bombay in 1949 and getting a callow Karan Singh appointed as the Maharaja's regent. Blackmailing Nehru, the Prime Minister of India, Nehru into not going for merger and giving a special status to Jammu and Kashmir through Article 370, citing the plebiscite promise. Becoming virtually independent, this is another of his blackmailings, becoming virtually independent and rigging the election to the Jammu and Kashmir Constituent Assembly to such an extent that all 75 National Conference candidates were elected unopposed, as the nominations of all other candidates were rejected, and there was no recourse to justice as the Election Commission of India had no jurisdiction in Jammu and Kashmir. This is hilarious politics. Arresting Shyama Prasad Mukherjee and whose death anniversary was yesterday. Arresting Shyama Prasad Mukherjee and keeping him in Jammu jail in spite of requests to shift him to Delhi. Sheikh Abdullah's hubris knew no bounds at this point, and we all know Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, he died under mysterious circumstances. Bringing land reform law to exclusively benefit the Muslims of Kashmir and the Chenab Valley. Refusing to, if you want more details on these issues, you need to read on the book called Unbreaking India by Sanjay Dikshit. Refusing to accommodate the Hindu refugees from West Punjab, but accommodating the Tibetan Muslims. Defying the two-nation theory in Kashmir by approving the principle of 2 PMs, 2 flags and 2 constitutions. So he is not accepting even he's not even accepting two-nation theory properly, because the other nation has already been created. Now he wants another nation inside India. Two prime ministers, 2 flags, 2 constitutions, all separate for Jammu and Kashmir. I mean, anyone who's 30 and 40 and above in India knows all this. I'm saying this for more younger people. Continual blackmail of Nehru by pretending to be the man who would win the plebiscite for India. Hobnobbing with the Pakistan leadership for a quasi-independent status, the final coup de grace. Getting his cabinet to propose to India that the defense of Jammu and Kashmir would be the joint responsibility of India and Pakistan. It was at this point that Pandit Nehru had to take the decision of arresting Sheikh Abdullah and keeping him detained for the next 11 years. Now let me read out to you an absolutely crazy section. This is described by Joseph Corbell, a member of the UN Commission on India and Pakistan, in his 1954 book Danger in Kashmir. Let's see what he writes about Sheikh Abdullah. In May 1949, Sheikh Abdullah had assured Jawaharlal Nehru that, quote-unquote, "I want you to believe that Kashmir is yours. No power in the world can separate us. Every Kashmiri feels that he is an Indian and India is his motherland." From time to time, he made a repeated mention about the total independence of Kashmir, and on other occasions he announced that the idea of independence was not practicable. In 1952, he declared that our state is neither under the legal domination of the Indian Parliament nor that of any parliament from outside the state. India or Pakistan, any country cannot be a spike in our wheel of progress. This is by Sheikh Abdullah. Then, after some days, he described Kashmir as such a bridge between India and Pakistan that can unite the two in one country. 2 days later, he said that the relations between Pakistan and India were strong and stable, and no power on the earth can separate us. Again, he announced that Kashmir's existence does not depend on India's money, trade or security forces, and he does not attach any importance to the strings of Indian assistance. He cannot be forced to stoop by threats. That was his words. The fact is that he, while raising Kashmir step by step, carried it far away from India. One of his political rivals has described him as communal in Kashmir, communist in Jammu, and a nationalist in Delhi.